Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the 11th episode of the Tales from the Freak podcast. I am very happy to present to you tonight a very special guest because it's probably the brightest shining star that recently came out of independent wrestling. Everyone talks about him. Ladies and gentlemen, don't flinch because Nolan Edward is on Tales from the Freak. Welcome to the podcast, man.
And you got the name right. You're one of the very few that doesn't add an S to the last name. So thank you.
I saw that actually happened in the match against Wheeler, Utah, Jimmy Lloyd's Up All Night, which I actually sponsored, just for those who don't know. And I was really happy to do that. The guys are really talented, both of them, so they deserved it. And watch the match. I think you can find it on YouTube right now because
I believe so. I believe everything's up. Yeah.
It's very good. Go check it out. So Nolan, just to begin with, the first question I want to ask you is, how did you got at first into professional wrestling as a fan and then as a performer, a worker?
As a fan, I always remembered kind of just seeing it on the TV and then not being forced to watch it. I don't know why. I don't know how I was exposed to it. Somebody in the house or something at the time was watching it, and I just remembered what it was when I was old enough to choose what I wanted to watch or whatever. So it was always there. It was always playing in the households I was in, like Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or the old like NWA TNA stuff or anything like that. It was always playing. And it wasn't until I believe I got a hold of an Undertaker VHS that I watched wrestling on my own for the first time. And then some people, because I'm from an orphanage, so one of my brothers at the time knew what it was, and I think that's the reason it was always on TV. So my first reason into watching wrestling was just because it was always there. Becoming a wrestler was different. It was I was 16 years old, so this is 2000 and I want to say 2014 or 2015. I was going to wrestling training when I was really small and like not even over 100 pounds and trying to train in Flint, Michigan. And I stepped away from it and pursued other stuff, and then eventually came back to it again when I realized that wrestling is what I wanted to do. It was probably like the tapes and stuff and wrestling being the way it is that made me want to wrestle, if I have to be completely honest.
Yeah, it actually punched me in the face like Mike Tyson that you were from an orphanage, because I didn't know that. And plus you told that in 2014 you had 16, so you're born in 1998. That's what you're saying?
Yes, 98. Yep.
My God, you're the first one who's younger than me because I'm from 97. Christ's sake, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You shocked me. I thought you were. It's not good to say, but I thought you were older because
I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be. I don't know. It feels weird always being the youngest, but
yeah, I know that feel.
I guess it's going to be this way for a while.
I know that feel because everyone is mind blown when they see. Well, not being a modest person, but everyone gets mind blown when they see that I can actually talk about professional wrestling and I'm 24. But I think it's not very it's not a gift. It's not very special. The only thing you need is passion, and that's what me and you as well in a different kind of way have. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
You need to have passion in things, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And talking about your recent performances, you debuted at Pit Fighter 2 against Justin Kyle, who ragdolled you in the pit like there was no fucking tomorrow, and it was a good match at first. But you fought back and you did it well, of course, without flinching, because that's what you do. And then at Pit Fighter 3, you got Dan Map. So two different kind of beats in two different pit fighters. And you ended up being a regular, and you had pretty muscular, pretty violent matches in the next months. So how did you got picked up like by Danny? Why do you think Danny gave you this opportunity, and how, of course?
I think it was a lot of seeing if I would do well in that match against Justin Kyle. I think that was kind of what it was up to, because there's plenty of reasons why Justin Kyle is that pit fighter. It all makes sense, right? You look at him and it just makes sense.
Yeah.
You look at me and it doesn't exactly make sense at first. I'm smiling while walking to the pit and all this other stuff. But I think I don't think if I shit the bed and I didn't fight against Justin Kyle, I don't think I would have ever made it back to wrestle Dan Moff and John Wayne Murdoch and Akira and travel with ICW and everything that they've been able to let me do. I know Struggles was very high on me. I think it was a constant battle between Struggles and Danny to say, well, is he going to do well or is he going to do bad? And I think I did well, considering they've brought me back on every show since then besides one. But I think I did well. I don't know exactly why he chose to. Maybe it was just he saw something and he decided, okay, there's something going on here. Maybe he didn't know it at first, but I think he's figuring it out just as like the fans do at the same time.
All right.
If that makes sense. I that's my guess.
I think the most important thing in professional wrestling sometimes as a promoter is choosing those who can actually work their ass off for the crowd. Because if you see someone who is actually very good in the ring, let's pick just one casual guy, Timothy Thatcher, for example. Timothy Thatcher is brilliant. Is one of my favorite wrestler on a technical base. I love this.
One of my favorite matches I've ever filmed was a Timothy Thatcher match for Evolve when I filmed for Evolve.
You filmed for Evolve, or you faced them?
ringside camera. I would my favorite match I've ever filmed, because I filmed wrestling for 3 years, was Timothy Thatcher versus Walter at Evolve in Detroit, Michigan for the WWE UK title. It was an amazing match. It was ringside.
That's mind blowing, really. You one hell of a workhorse, both in and outside of the ring. I'm admired, really. I really admired it. By the way,
I cut you off though, so I apologize.
No worries.
Timothy Thatcher being amazing.
Yeah, it is actually amazing, and not everyone understands him because he's from another time. I think he should be born at Karl Gotch time, probably, or something like that. But you see him, you watch him from home or live, is an amazing experience. But what he does, and I am saying this with all the good intentions in this world, he does it for himself. He does because Timothy Thatcher wants to compete. Then you go in the ring and you actually want to compete, but you tend to remember a guy who is not an underdog, because it's an overused word in my opinion, but he busts his ass out for the crowd. And that's what you do every time. That's what, in my opinion, as a fan, gets into a professional get me into professional wrestling.
Behind the wrestler, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So Danny did the right thing, because I think he thought you would have done that. You're like, you want to shine and you can do it. So in my opinion, it was also because of that, because I got really into your work, especially after watching the match with Dan Moff. So
I think the match with Dan Moff gave people a lot of reason to try to watch other stuff of mine.
Yeah, it was awesome, because it was the perfect mix between good professional wrestling, legalized massacre actually, or murder or whatever, and it was a good story told, and I'm a really big fan of storytelling. I'm into Terry Funk, Ric Flair, and all this kind of athletes a lot. Workers, because athletes, it's too lame to use as a word for them. And I got really into it because it was a very good story. And yeah, I think it put you on the map pretty good. That was awesome.
I have to agree with that. I think it did.
And what I want to ask you next is, you fought them off in a pit. You did that with Justin Kyle as well. Then you faced like Brandon Kirk in the chains. And you even ended up in No Peace Underground, who is one of the, for those who don't know, is one of the most, rising companies in the United States right now. And they pretty much do no ring deathmatch, even though they had
Yep.
2 ring shows recently at Fight Forever, and then they had Anku like a month ago. But what's the difference between fighting on a stage, on a ring, and inside the chains, and in the pit, of course?
I can compare the 3, but I can't compare any of them to what it's like wrestling inside of a normal ring.
All right, you can do that.
Fighting in the pit took a little bit to get used to. Like that match with Justin Kyle, for example. I think halfway through the match, despite knowing it wasn't a ring walking into it, when I was in the zone and I wasn't thinking about anything else, I looked around and I was like, oh shit, I'm not in a wrestling ring.
Yeah, you can't rebound the ropes. You can't rebound the ropes and stuff like that.
Ring, but in the moment, I thought, oh crap, I'm not in one. Once I got over that, the chains are fun. It's limiting, but or some people will say it's limiting. I don't agree, because I look at the chains and the same as the pit, and also I'm still not used to no ring, but I'll be going back to no peace against Wolf Taylor at the end of the month as well, after the ICW shows. But you kind of look at different ways to do stuff, use your environment for your advantage. I think I take advantage of that pretty well. So I can compare the 3, no ring, chains, and pit. Very similar.
Right.
And how I approach it and everything, but it's so different from a wrestling ring. Your environment's more dangerous, and somebody that can use their environment for their advantage will do way better and go much further in ICW's chains or the pit or at no pieces, no ring shows, stuff like that. I'm not a high flyer, like you mentioned, so I can use the chains to my advantage more than ropes.
Right. But what I meant is basically, as I've trained 2 months in my life, I noted one thing. Of course, I'm not a professional wrestler. I'm just a fan who does things. But the fact is, when you see a ring and you try to rebound to the ropes, it's like a little bit of mechanical at some point. So if you see the ropes, you tell yourself, even though you're not a night flyer, okay, I'll do an international or stuff like that. Something you can't actually do in a pit, or well, maybe in the chains you can rebound, but there's more, space and
like I've that match with Kirk, just something as simple as whipping him into the chains threw his whole momentum off last second. That's what gave me a moment to breathe and catch my breath and get back on track and try to change the momentum and the pace of the match. So it's different for sure.
Yeah, I saw a documentary back in the days from Vice, which was about the wrestlers. And I think it was the first episode, like the new face of professional wrestling. No, it was the third, I think. And they told that professional wrestlers right now are pretty much used to do everything. Like you can do normal professional wrestling, technical one, as you showed against Wheeler, Utah. You can do more storytelling based matches, but you can also do death match. So I think you're right. Everyone has to adapt to a lot of things right now, because all of the wrestlers can do pretty much everything. I think the best example of that was right now Shane Strickland, because he could actually do everything. And I really see a lot of him in you, actually, from a talent on a talent basis, and also as a character. You have 2 different characters, of course, but I think you're working on it very well in a different way, just as you did in the past with the Swerve thing, the one doing pretty much everything in professional wrestling. So as a fan, I love to see you like developing all these things together.
Trying to be as
versatile as possible,
Yeah, trying to be as versatile as possible, be like a hybrid wrestler and everything, trying to just do everything I can. Because if I wasn't good at something, I would stop doing it. Like
Yeah.
if I wasn't confident in death matches, I wouldn't keep doing them. If I wasn't confident in technical wrestling, I wouldn't keep doing it. But I keep doing it because I have fun with everything. So it's kind of hard to not try and keep doing everything.
Yeah, most people can't understand that deathmatch wrestling is professional wrestling as well.
And
But
it's
because,
not something you can just you try it at one point, obviously, when you're new to it. Like I am still new, and there's always going to be somebody's first time. And I think with technical wrestling or deathmatch wrestling or any aspect of wrestling outside of the bare minimum, you got to figure out if you like it, and then if you like it, stick with it. Don't try to just do it once. Like if you're good at it, go.
yeah, I actually talked with some professional wrestlers who told the exact opposite of what you just said. They're more like, well, if I have to do a death match, it's once in a lifetime and it's gonna be special. But I can't understand both of point of views. Like if you're good at it, keep doing it. And next question is about something you actually wrote recently on social media, but the fact that you came back at the foster house, I think,
Mhm.
and I didn't know it was an orphanage, I think, right? As you
Yeah,
told
yeah, yeah,
before. I couldn't understand that because I don't know, I'm a low-minded scumbag probably. But you told that the kids were all around you and thought you were special because you are special actually because you did something great, ending on the Deathmatch magazine cover.
yeah.
So, can you tell that experience right here? Like, how did the things went? I'm curious to
It
know
was
that.
it was odd but very cool. Um, so my kind of living environment has always been I'm constantly meeting new people that I can call family because of just the setting that a foster home and orphanage that it brings. Uh, but for some people to recognize me and meeting new people, when I went back, I just set the magazine, the Death Match, a Love Letter magazine on the table. A photo of me after my match with John Wayne Murdoch is on it, and they thought it was cool. And I've never tried to show it off to anybody. I've shared it for advertising. It got sold out. They did another run of the magazine of issue one before issue two came out, but I never told people outside of wrestling in my life, hey, you need to look at this, you need to do that. I just set it down, and then I walked away for a little bit, and then when I came back, everybody was asking me questions about it. They thought it was so cool, and I guess that's the first time I really stopped to think, wow, I'm on the cover of something that's actually really cool. Like why it was like a why am I on the cover of this thing? It was always my thought, like, why are you asking me? Because at first when that magazine approached me, they're a brand new magazine. It was issue one. I thought I was just doing 5 questions for an online article, to be completely honest. And then a day later, they messaged me about answering more questions. And then next thing you know, I'm on the cover of a magazine and they're printing it and shipping them. I was like, wow, this turned into something completely different. So for people outside of my wrestling community to look at it and be very entertained with it and proud of it, it was a very cool feeling.
Yeah, professional wrestling is something so underground sometimes that
Yeah.
when people discover it and you're part of it is awesome. It happens the same to me every time. I do not say anything to someone about this podcast and they end up saying you do a really cool job and blah blah blah. I don't want to,
Yeah.
show off as well, but
Mhm.
it's pretty, it's pretty good to hear. It's cool. You feel cool. And
Yeah, it's a good feeling that you're not saying, "Hey, can I get your thoughts on this?" They just give you them and they're positive thoughts.
That's awesome. That's very
Yeah,
awesome. As Danny Havoc used to say, it's nice to be nice. So when people
it is nice to be
understand,
nice.
so when people are that way, is always good. And last question, but I think it's a very huge one. In this weekend, if I can remember correctly, you are on Bloodsport because you're part of the
Yep.
roster. Josh Barnett picked you to go against Cole Jack, or I think had a pretty awesome performance in the last one when you hadn't debuted in GCW yet. So it's gonna be a pretty awesome event, in my opinion, because there's the environment, there is two competent commentators. There's a really huge main event in Chris Dickinson versus Jeff Cobb. So, uh, how do you think uh, you're gonna fit in this one? Like how it feels to be a part of it, how it feels to be picked about by Josh Barnett. Like I think it's very good. What is your opinion about it?
I agree with everybody kind of like saying the same stuff that you've said. Is it's very it's it's shocking but a good thing. Like I was completely shocked when I was approached about it, because I was approached about it pretty close uh, to everything happening, and so I kind of looked at it like who's all going to be there. How I already knew I was going to stand out, and not in a way where people are going to think he's going to thrive. I've gotten people telling me like you're going to do so well in that environment and stuff like that. My first thoughts were, why me? I'm definitely going to be the smallest one there. And then my final thought was, I think if you were to ask me why Nolan Edward is a fighter, I wouldn't say I'm a fighter. I'd just say I survive. Um, I've lived in weird environments and stuff my entire life where fighting is the only option. Once I became a pro wrestler, I never once thought about it like, man, I get to go fight this weekend. I've looked at it as I get to step in a ring. And I think people forget why they became pro wrestlers because they get so caught up in everything. They get so caught up in drama and politics with wrestling that when I was chose for Bloodsport, I was like, okay, well, why me? Why this? Why that? I'm probably not small enough. I'm not, maybe I won't do well. Maybe I will do well. And then I kind of had to stop thinking that. I was like, fuck it, dude. You get beat up better than anybody gets beat up because you can just keep taking shit. um, I kind of looked at it that way. I had to like ask myself, I'm stoked for the opportunity to be chosen. I was so confused. So confused. Like I don't know what went into it. I don't know if they needed somebody. And that's just me being completely honest. Uh, I do consider myself a fighter, but I also if I had to choose, I'd say I'm a better survivor than anybody else. I think I can just outstand people. So it's weird. It's a weird environment. I'm the smallest one there. I can tell you that right now. I'm the smallest one there.
Yeah, I
But I
think so.
don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think any bad or nervous thought that I had going into it ended up being a bad thing.
I personally think that there's two ways you can get famous. The first one is you're the strongest. The second one is you don't get killed by pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Because like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
I don't know say that, but fuck it. And the point is you will be I mean that event is iconic. They needed iconic performers. That what workers. I don't like that word again, but they needed an iconic worker as well. And I think they picked the right one. So
Yeah.
I mean, as well as you fit it in the chains and the pit, it's pretty much the same thing. Well, a little bit of different because there are
Different.
actual
Yeah.
there are actual disqualifications and stuff like that. But I think everyone can fit in that. Plus, professional wrestling allows you to do it because there's not weight difference except in maybe in Japan, but they don't
Right.
do
No
them.
weight difference. No, like I said, I'm the smallest one there, and I guarantee, like I'm facing big guys. So it's like it's nothing I'm not used to. At this point, I think that match with Wheeler Yuto was the first time I wrestled somebody my size in a long time.
It will be like overused as a definition, telling you that you're a modern day Spike Dudley, maybe.
I love that comparison though.
Yeah, I'm
I
a big
liked the
fan.
comparisons. I liked the comparisons I got to Mikey Whipwreck when I was just constantly getting attacked.
That's a good one as well. But you actually have some offensive in the matches. It's like
Yeah, that's the big difference is I actually have offense.
Mike Whipwreck, I think, spent like 1 year before doing a single move
One
or
year.
so or
That
something like
first
that.
year. That first year.
I mean, it's a good comparison, but maybe you're a mix of the two. And the total difference about you and Mikey Whipwreck is you aren't scared as he
Yeah.
was actually.
Yeah. I like the comparisons, but there's only one Nolan Edward.
Yeah, I love that sentence as well because that's what I like about you. You're original. You're first time I see someone like you. Everyone has been done in professional wrestling, so when you find a way to look different, like maybe Atsushi Onita did, or uh, just one name popped out of my mind, Matt Tremont has done in the last few years, competing everywhere and bringing storytelling back in deathmatch wrestling did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they did, and you're doing a pretty awesome job. So, last question before we end up this interview. I always do this at the end of the podcast. You are inside of the business. You've been inside of the business for not many years, some years right now, but not many, as you told me. Someone who you haven't faced yet that you'd really like to wrestle against.
I've in Deathmatch a Love Letter, I was asked a similar question. It was like dream opponents that can't happen and a dream opponent that can happen. And my answer was Carrie Awful.
I
Carrie
love
Awful's a
that
wrestler.
guy. I'm a really big fan of Cardis. Fuck's sake,
Yep.
finally someone else.
Carrie is my trainer, and I've been to a lot of trainers, but the one that I've learned the most from is Carrie. And at the time when Deathmatch a Love Letter asked me, I said Carrie because we haven't wrestled outside of maybe training at practice or anything like that. And we haven't wrestled on a show ever. We haven't touched in a match. And we get to in April. There's this show called Pawcade. It's a benefit show for an animal shelter in Indiana, and it's me versus Carrie Awful, trainer versus student, and it's weird because I spoke it into the world, and then the next week I was asked if I could do a show against Carrie, and it was perfect. It was perfect timing. So at the end of April or in the middle of April, I'll get to have that one match that I've always wanted to, and once that match happens, then I'll think about the next one. I try not to have a list. I try to stick to one and focus on it.
Well, it's safe to say that you're different in this because step by step, that one I think is your philosophy by you telling this.
No
And
joke. Live for today.
I think Matt Hardy once said that, and it's true. Live for the
It's true.
moment.
Yep.
I've always preferred Matt to Jeff, actually, but don't tell anybody. It's like you prefer. Both. Yeah, me too. But I think it's like you say you
for
prefer
different reasons.
Yeah,
they're
totally.
They're both very different, so I can get something from either one of them.
It's like those who would say they prefer like Robin to Batman or something like that, but I'm not ashamed
like them for two different reasons.
Yeah, me too, actually. So there's anything else you want to say before we end the interview? Like, do you have social media actually?
Yeah, I have Instagram and Twitter. I'm pretty active on. It's @_Nolan Edward. There's this website, very similar to a pro wrestling tees that people are familiar to, where it's just deathmatch wrestling merch called Deathmatch Worldwide. I'm constantly sharing the link on my social media to shirts specifically to that website for merch. And other than that, I'm constantly posting stuff on Patreon. I have a Patreon. It's the same thing at _ Nolan Edward. Lots of behind the scenes footage and stuff like that that people can subscribe to. But that's everything. That's everything that you can stay up to date on and follow.
I'm really happy you said that, because there's one thing that I've always forgot to say in the latest podcast. These guys that I interviewed, that I spend my time with for your own entertainment as well, are trained professional who put their bodies on the line for your entertainment. So always support independent wrestling. Italy is not the biggest country for independent wrestling, but there are a lot of fans. So if you're listening right now, support those workers, because they work for your own entertainment and they're trying to make a living out of it. It's not like WWE or AEW or Impact Wrestling or MLW or whatever, but Freemancer. And that's what it is. So thank you, Nolan Edward, for your time.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, I have social media as well, and I'm very active on them. My page is Tales from the Prick, so go like it, and don't forget to share the video, support Nolan Edward and independent wrestling. And just a thing between me and you, don't spell his name wrong.
Thank you.
It's Nolan Edward with the
there's no S.
The S is mute. No, there's no fucking S, for fuck's sake.
There's no S.
It's not Eddie Edwards. Is not his brother. It's Edward. That's what it is.
It's Edward.
No affiliation with Eddie Edwards.
No affiliation. None at all.
So thank you for your time again, Nolan, and
thank you.
See you all again in the next episode. Bye bye.